Welcome back, everybody. We are now pretty deep into our understanding of how to use SAM, but today in this video, now that we have our account set up, we've gone through how we can use the databases, and we've also looked at the usability within the features that allow us to send messages, to keep track of our calendar, as well as be able to place calls through the account. We are going to take the big chunk that you have been waiting for, and that is we're going to be looking at how to build automations inside of SAM. Now, historically speaking, workflow automations have been inside of CRMs for probably about the last 20 years or so, maybe 10 to 15 if we're being more accurate. And this is a concept that is really fun for me because I remember being in high school and being at my parents' house and sitting at a desk observing a whiteboard that I now use, and you've probably seen in some of the backdrops of my videos, as Mark shared with me the idea of what a workflow automation was, and more importantly, how he was building and developing a workflow automations engine. So that is the actual infrastructure. So workflows have very much been a part of my life for the last 15 years or so. And I have had the opportunity to not only build them for real estate agents, not only help coach on how to think about systems, as well as start implementing systems into your business. But this is one of my favorite concepts because once you start adding these automations to your business, you can take all of the things in your business that are operational that you do again and again, and you can start building out automations. Now, inside of SAM, we call these routines because each and every day we all have lots of routines that we engage in. Maybe it's your morning routine. For me, I wake up in the morning, I go brush my teeth, I make some coffee, go for a walk, come back, take a shower, and then I get to work. That's my morning routine. Maybe in the evenings, we have our evening routine for getting ready to go to sleep, or maybe even our routine of getting to the office. Whatever that is, there's lots of routines in our life. Now, routines are going to be a modern take on traditional workflow automations. And there's a very big reason for this. So historically, when Mark and I would help a real estate agent learn how to build automations, there were a couple of steps we had to engage in. The very first one would be a 2-week time audit. And what you would basically do is set a 30-minute timer, and every time that timer went off, you would pause and you would write down what you had done for the last 30 minutes, taking an inventory of your actual task log. Then once that 2 weeks was up, you would take all of that and you would write it into sticky notes, or you would paste it onto a big whiteboard, and you would start to organize all of those actions or those repeating things that you did over those 2 weeks into tasks that then became systems and ultimately became automations that we built out. Well, in doing this, we've already invested 2 weeks. We're probably going to invest another week or two into actually building it into our technology. And that is for a single automation. So there's a really large time investment that's required, and that's if you already know how to build these. And so when we started building routines, this was one of those things that we wanted to address because it is just generally speaking not feasible for you, especially when you start looking at some of the larger routines that we could build inside our business. Maybe those are the contract or close processes or the new lead process. Well, we're going to look at exactly how we've shifted how to think about automations and how you are going to just absolutely be blown away by this. So if you're finding this video on YouTube and you're just generally interested in automations, welcome. If you are a member of the trialing community for SAM, welcome. And if you're one of my customers looking to learn a little bit more Welcome back. And we are going to go ahead and we're going to dive into that today. So go ahead and open up your SAM account. You can do that by going to sam.workflowsecrets.info, and you are going to be met with this screen. Now, go ahead and log in. And if you're finding this and you do not yet have a login, click that sign up button and go ahead and start your free trial. And then we are going to be inside of our SAM account. Now, we're not covering dashboards yet again, because we're going to cover that in the next video. This is going to cover all sorts of little bonus features that I think you're going to really love. But today, we're going to move all the way over to these routines. So there are lots of routines that we can start to build into our business, and routines are just modern workflow automations, just like I said. But what we can do in SAM, if you look on the left-hand side, you can see that we have some that are automatic. That means they start automatically. Now, if you go back to the contacts section and you remember how I shared about those important dates inside our contact section, these are how we trigger those routine automations to occur. And what happens is, as you add an important date, that is what starts the automation. So no longer do you need to go in and manually start all of these automations. You can just add them in to your important date section. And as you do, those routines that you have set to automatic will go ahead and get started. Now, the other thing that's worth noting while we're on this important date section, so that we get a fundamental understanding of these routines, we've taken our workflow automations, and remember I said there were multi-hundred step processes, the contractor close, the new lead processes. Well, sometimes those are just super duper big and they cover lots and lots of different steps, but they're hard to think about and even harder to build. And so routines is going to refocus how we build these by shifting down into a singular focus. We like to say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. This exact same thought process goes into these routines. So if you notice inside the routines, on the important dates section, we have each of these important dates that can trigger its own routine. So now, instead of thinking about an entire process, we just have to go, man, what would be a world-class client experience for my birthday, for my anniversary? What about when someone gives me an initial call or an initial meeting is set up? All of these different things can start to build on those experiences that drive the automations inside our business. Now, it's worth noting that right now I have a lot of preset important dates, and that's really great because most of these are going to help get you exactly where you need to. But you might find yourself saying, well, Cody, I have this really specific important date that I need. Not a problem. What you can do is go ahead and click back out of this contact and go back up to that top right hand. Remember when we used that initial for the drop down? Well, this time we are going to go into the setups area. We're going to go ahead and click on this menu options. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to click on this manage date fields. Now, this is where we can do several different things. One, we can look at all of the custom date fields that we have added into our date fields section. We can look at all of these. We could even go in and click the pencil and we could adjust the specific date field. We can sort that by the contacts, properties, listings, transactions, or project sections. Those are all the areas where automations could begin. And then we can also add date fields. So if there's a date field that you want to build into your important dates so that you can start an automation on it, this would be where we go ahead and add it. And it's worth noting, one of the things that Mark brought over from his past experience working to build out an automations engine is the fact that each and every one of you is going to have a very specific set of needs for your business when it comes to what fields you're going to be triggering. Because of that, what we could have done was we could have just pre-built all of those, and then you could message into us and we would add those globally to every member. Well, that would really make the field themselves, the important dates, really cumbersome because there'd be lots of important dates that you probably wouldn't need. And so putting that into your hands, giving you the power to do that, is a way for us to empower you to take control of your important dates, make it really custom. And that's one of the things that Sam is going to bring to the table, is helping you customize your important dates so that you can customize your system to your actual business need. So now that we've looked at that piece, let's go ahead and go back into the automations. Now, inside the routines section on the left-hand side, like I said, these are all my automatic ones. And then these are my manual ones, which means I would need to start them manually, or maybe they're just automations that I don't yet have set to active. So when we're starting to build out an automation, there's a couple of ways that we can do it. But the very first one would be on this top right-hand side, clicking this new routine button. And we could actually build it the manual way that you're probably really familiar with. So maybe this is a new lead automation. And from here, it's going to go with our contacts database. And then we need to select which important date field is going to be triggering the actual start of this automation. So I'm going to scroll down, and I actually use this one quite often, so it's going to be a little easier for me to navigate. But new lead date would be my important date. Now, one of the things that we can also do is we can add conditions. So if you guys remember, I was talking about that Boolean logic, and it's and or statements that allow us to do different things. So I actually have Boolean logic built into these conditions. So what that means is I can say, hey, I only want this specific routine to start if I have the specific tag of agent included with an and then I could also include a specific condition that they also need to be an agent under their type. Now I could go equal or does not equal. So maybe I need them to be in that regard. I could shift that and to an or, meaning either one of those must be included for it to actually be triggered. So how this plays out is in a really interesting way, because I actually use these conditions in a lot of different capacities. So one of the ways in which I've done this recently was I was hosting a live event called Smarter by Summer, where I was helping teach real estate agents the foundations of using AI in their businesses. So I built out a routine that had all of the different emails that I was going to send them over the course of 75 days. And then I built a condition so that only the leads that I brought into SAM that were tagged for that event date using that important date and had the condition of a specific tag it would be started on. But what this does is it allowed me to import a list and include that specific important date being filled out, as well as that specific tag assigned to everyone in that list. And then boom, all of the automations kicked off at once. And now I have all of those agents receiving emails from me, and I didn't have to go in and manually start the automation on hundreds of different attendees. So think about the time savings that comes into play when we do things like that. So that is how conditions can help encourage us to actually start the automation build. So now that we kind of understand the general setup, here's what we could do. We could go and we could click add routine activity, and we could include different activities that are going to be covered. So maybe this is the new lead welcome, and I want that to happen 0 days. I could also go weeks, months, or years, and I could go before or after that new lead date. Now, I could also use the start date. That would be when the routine starts, or I could set a specific month day. So this would be really good if you did decide to lean into, say, a 4th of July email or something like that. But for this specific one, the actual important date that we're using for this routine is going to be what I want to use. Outside of that, I need to select when anything would be kicked off that was associated with this specific activity. Now, I've got a lot of preset ones, but you can actually build your own by clicking this little clock to the right-hand side. It's going to pop up and ask you when you would like to set it and then what it would like its title to be. Now, the really cool thing about this, leaning back into Mark's experience building automations engines, this is something that traditionally speaking, the system would send out one email at 8 a.m. and that was just when it sent out. This way, you actually get the power of getting to set your own time frame, and you can set several different ones. That way, you don't have just oodles and oodles of automations kicking off all at 8 a.m. and then they receive 3 or 4 messages from different automations that are running for you all at once. It does a couple of other things on our end. It makes sure that the traffic getting sent out of SAM isn't so crazy, and it's going to help make sure that those go out into their inboxes, and the actual inboxes do not flag those as spam because they're seeing that there's lots of them going out all at once. From here, we could set the duration. We need to at least have 15 minutes. That's going to be because this is going to show up on our calendar. We could select the color we want it to be on our calendar. We can assign the specific team members that are going to be in charge of this activity. Now, this is where I like to note that if you're a trialing member, you're only going to have your team member for now. But once you subscribe to SAM, depending on which subscription model you have, you might have more team members. And so then you can assign multiples, you could adjust who, and you can do that really quickly. Outside of here, on the right-hand side, we have our area for checklist items. Now, checklist items are really cool because historically, checklists have been a way for us to make lots of little micro tasks that need to occur before an activity is completed. And what this allows us to do is ensure that nothing slips through the cracks. And in fact, we can even set up our checklists so that we have to accomplish lots of different things before that actual activity gets done. So how that plays out is perhaps in the checklists area, we want to go and we could choose from existing checklists. And then once we check that off, this activity could be completed. The other thing we could do is we could build new checklist items. Maybe we're going to review contact details. And then this is going to be a checklist only versus a field validation or an open URL. We can choose the color of the text as well as the background. And then at the very bottom, we could choose is this must be checked. We can make that required or it's not required. And then we could hit save and that checklist would be built. And then we could also adjust which one is most important. So this is how we build out the activities, and we could stop here and the activity and the automation might just give us a notice for these checklist items, but we can also build into the actual automation some actions. Now, actions are the pieces that are actually going to do something for us inside the routine. So this is going to send a message currently, but we might want to adjust this, and it's just the title of it. So send message, new lead. Selected for automatic processing is going to allow SAM to run it for us, and we're basically just going to get to send it. SAM will send it on our behalf, no problem. So we can check that. And then we can also allow for incomplete checklists. And if they are incomplete, we can have a specific number of days that it's going to push forward before it actually runs this. So that's where that comes into play. Now, from here, we need to set what type of action this actually is. And we have lots of ways in which you can run things inside of SAM with the goal of always adding different things that can help you out further. So in the future, you might actually see more items than you currently see on this video, but that's okay. That just means you have some more power in your hands. So we're going to choose the send a message, but we could actually build it out to add this specific activity to a call list. Running a webhook would allow us to reach outside of SAM to another website or another software. We could update one of the fields inside of that contact using this. This is a really great way to refresh our routines or even start another routine. So you can have routines that trigger other routines, which is really cool. And then we could also do things like send Slack messages using our Slack integration, which we can dive into a little bit later. But for now, we're just going to send a message, and then we're going to select a template. So I'm going to click on this, and I would be able to scroll through all of my pre-templated messages, select the one, or on the top right-hand side, I can click this plus, and I can write a new message. I could even have Sam help me write this message. Write a new message to a new lead sharing a bit about my business, welcoming them to working with us, and sending a call to action for booking a call to see where they are in the home buying process. Okay, so this is basically the overall goal of this message. We're going to write a new message to a lead. I probably don't need to say the word new. Write a message to a new lead, share a bit about our business, welcome them to working with us, and then a call to action to book a call. Now, Sam is going to know based on the information we filled in our setup on email or on video number 1 about our business. That's pretty cool. And it can actually use that information while it's creating this specific message. Then it's going to take the rest of the goal, which was to welcome them and send a call to action, and boom. We're thrilled to have you. We're excited. We were established in 2019. And then here's the book a call. So this looks pretty good. You could sit there, you could review it for a second. I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. It's going to pre-select that. I click on it, and then now that template is tied to this specific email. So now that we have all of this built out, there is another way in which we could utilize the AI inside of SAM. Now, because we call objectives when we're building out those custom emails, we actually have an area for you to build an objective here. This is one of those areas where we can really tap into the AI, because what we're doing is we're augmenting that template that we just created using additional steps. So this is a really fun way for us to really leverage Sam's ability to take a pre-existing template and then rewrite it, whether it's specific to that person or it includes additional details. So a really good example of this would be you could pre-write a templated birthday message, and then inside the objective, if you remember my example in the contact, we had those personal details. Well, in this objective inside the routine, you could ask Sam to use some of those personal details in that template, and it'll take that birthday message template and it'll rewrite it using that specific contact's personal details. That way you have an automation built that can run on every contact, and you don't have to send a specific one-off message, but it's going to be personalized to them. And this is the real power of it. And we can do that for lots of different things, but this is the area where we can do that. Now, it's worth noting that when we have Sam augment one of our templates, we do inside the outbox need to approve it, because we don't want to be sending out things that we haven't read through or approved inside of Sam. That's just a general rule of thumb. I like to say, if you wouldn't task your assistant on day 1 of hiring them with full control of your outbox, you probably shouldn't task Sam with it either. So that is a really powerful way that we can build objectives in. And those could be as simple as use personal details from the personal details section to make it extra special. And that would allow Sam to task that. Now, in this specific example, because I'm calling attention to the personal details, and there's not an actual contact tied to this routine yet, what we are not going to get is a really good example of me showcasing. But if we add an objective on this right-hand side, we can display a sample message, and Sam will take and it'll pre-build an example for us so that we can see what that objective would look like. Now, the other way we could use objectives is if I long press on that template, it's going to clear it, and I could have Sam just write the message for me. So maybe in that case, I could have used that message that I used to build that template. So write a message to a new lead, welcoming them, sharing a bit about me, and sending a CTA to connect to see where they are. Oh, goodness. In the home buying process. So here, I do not have a template, so it's not going to be augmented, but Sam is going to actually generate it for us. So now that we understand how to build out these objectives, what we can do is we can look at the last few details inside the specific action, and that is going to be the message type. So if you remember back to our database video, we were talking about the contact preference, and that's going to be where this comes into play. So inside of here, we're able to choose their preferred method of communication or email, their preferred method of communication or SMS. What that means is if we had filled out that the contact prefers SMS, but its template is actually written as an email, it would take that email, it would convert it to SMS because it's the preferred, and it would send it out to them as an SMS. But if they didn't have a preference, it would keep it defaulted as email. Now, this is a really great way for us to show up for that person in a way that they are going to best receive our messages. So if you know that they're just never going to check their email inbox, but they always reply to you when you text them, this is a great example of where you could use that. And so you can customize the specific preferences based on the specific contacts using SAM. And this is going to be a really great way to help do that. So we can set if we want it in that preferred or email or SMS, or we could just say, no, this is always going to be an email, or no, this is always going to be an SMS. So we can do that. And then at the very bottom, we can include additional recipients. So this specific one needs to go to the routine contact. That's the person this routine automation was started on. And that is going to be this new lead in this example. But we could actually add message recipients. They could be specific email addresses, specific phone numbers. They could be team members or record owners or connections. So there's lots of ways in which we could do that. We could have them send a CC or a BCC as well. So oftentimes what I would do for this is I would select an other contact. Maybe I'm going to include them as a BCC. I'm going to select, and then I'm going to include my contact. Now, what this does when I hit save is it's going to BCC me that I had a new lead come into SAM and this automation was triggered and they are receiving this new lead welcome email. That way I am in the loop in this regard. If I decided, oh gosh, I'm getting a lot of emails for new leads coming in and it's just a little bit overwhelming, I can always remove that from me. Now I can go ahead and hit save. So this is how we would build out logically each and every one of these steps inside a routine to start building it out manually. And then from there, once it's ready to go, we could go ahead and click this little toggle. It would set it to active. And then now anytime my new lead date gets filled out, and right now I don't have any of those conditions because I didn't save any of them, it would immediately start this specific routine. They would receive their new lead welcome email, and that is how the experience would begin. But here's the deal. Remember how I said that traditional workflows take a lot of time? Well, oftentimes, because they are so difficult to think about, they require so much startup time to build, oftentimes real estate agents just neglect them or put them to the side or say they'll work on it later, and they never get to it. Well, I have over the last 6 years spent a lot of time listening to what I would call the gurus of real estate these real estate agents who are doing 100+ transactions a year, the real estate agents who leave work at 3 p.m. to go pick up their kids and spend time with their family and don't even stress because their business is running for them, or maybe even the real estate agents who are guaranteeing to themselves as a personal promise that they're going to take 2 weeks off each and every year. Those real estate agents share the power in building your automations. So when I'm talking to new agents who are just trying to figure out, man, how do I even get my business up and running? The easy answer is you need to build in automations. But sometimes the easy answer is not actually as easy to execute. And so this is why we completely reimagined how you build workflow automations inside of routines. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to go ahead and hit new routine, and I'm going to give it another title. It's going to stay with the contacts, and then the new lead date is going to be what I fill out. Now, those are the 3 things that we need to fill out to be successful in building what we're going to build. And then I'm going to go ahead, and instead of hitting the plus button like we did before, I'm going to hit these magic little shimmers, and I'm going to let Sam build it for me. Now, from here, I could talk in just regular plain language about what I want to accomplish. I could even include a massive long little pre-written prompt, create a lead nurture campaign for a first-time home buyer. I want to send an email or SMS each day for the first 3 days after they come in. And then I want it to be a total of 6 messages. Well, that would be a really good way of doing it, but we can actually condense this down even further. In fact, Mark and I have built it so that you could do it in a very small number of words. So create a new lead automation with 6 messages. Create a new lead automation with 6 messages. Now on the bottom left-hand side, we're going to enhance the object with AI. Sam is going to look at this and go, okay, well, what are they even trying to accomplish? And boom, we're going to now have a really well written out objective that Sam has helped us with. Now, is it meeting the core criteria? 6 strategically timed emails that span 14 days. Sam guessed on the time frame that would best fit our goals. The welcome email begins immediately, and then it gives some details on when each of those. Now from here, all I have to do is hit generate. And this is where the real magic happens. So Sam is looking at the goals, and then it's going to pop up, and it's pre-built out all of the different steps. Now, all we need to do is go through and review each of these steps, make sure they're kind of what we want. We could go in and we could edit any of these step summaries, and that will help focus Sam. Or we could add additional steps. But once all of this is ready to go, we feel good about this, we can approve and start building. Now, this is where the crazy part happens, because Sam is currently thinking through all of the steps that it wants to build into this automation. This would have traditionally been done manually by you. You would have to type out each of these activities. Now, not only has Sam built out all of our activities, and it's also built out the actions inside those activities like we just walked through. It is writing all of the messages by creating each and every one of the templates for each one of these messages. And it is almost done building this automation in just the small little amount of time that I've been rambling on and on. And so now, instead of it taking 2+ weeks to think about the process, to outline all the steps, and to then build it into our business, we said in a couple of words what we wanted to do. We had Sam help us out in making a really good objective. And then boom, we have an automation. How cool is that? Mark said, how can I make it any easier? And truthfully, I don't know that we could have. So once we have this, let's go ahead and look at it and just verify that this is actually going to be good. So introduction, we actually have a welcome email that's going to start on the date. Now, we could have had it start on this new lead date, but 0 days after the start date of the routine, it could also go out. This welcome message is not currently selected for automatic, but because there's a template, let's go ahead and select it. And then we can click on this template and you can see that, boom, Sam has pre-written this message. It's explaining who I am and just explaining a little bit about me. This is a really great message overall. Now, in here, we could go and we could adjust and add our own flair. We could rewrite anything that we didn't feel like quite hit the mark. Because we did our setup and we included our writing style, Sam used my writing style to write these messages, and it used the understanding of my business to build out this specific message so that it's sharing about me. How cool is that? So now, instead of automations taking weeks and weeks to build, we can do it in 2 to 3 minutes with minimal words required to be able to build them. And each and every single step inside your business can have an automated process attached to it. I like to say that if you've written a message more than twice, it should probably be a template. And if you send it out more than twice, it should probably have an automation tied to it. So here is where you can then go through each and every one of those important dates, and you can think, man, what would a world-class client experience be for this specific important date? Whether it's your birthday, your anniversary, your message sent date, or message open date, or maybe it's appointment set date. Whatever important date you're looking at, you just have to look at that specific date, ask yourself that question, build it out with Sam, or build it out manually if you feel like you have a better idea. And you could even test A/B style, your build versus Sam's build, and you could start to see which one works better. That's pretty cool too. But this is how we can build modern workflow automations, and this is how we do it inside SAM. So this is going to be the massive, massive power that comes into your use of SAM, and this is going to be like nothing else that you've ever done. I like to say this is going to be what makes CRMs as we know it obsolete, and we're going to be doing it in the next 12 to 24 months, and that is something that I am personally feeling very excited about. So this is, generally speaking, how we build out those automations, and a little bit of focus and a little bit of understanding on exactly how all of those pieces come together. So here is your task. I want you to go ahead and start building out your first automation. Easiest low-hanging fruit one is probably going to be your birthday or your anniversary. Those, typically speaking, really easy to build out. And then you can start to get an understanding of what success building routines looks like. Now, we have one more video in this series, and what we're going to be covering is a lot of little small features that are going to help you walk away from this time with us with a really great understanding of how can I do lots of little micro tricks, but we have completed the fundamentals of using SAM in a way that you could be successful from here on out, and you wouldn't even have to watch that last video, but there are a lot of really cool things that are going to help you be successful. So with that being said, I will see you on the next video, and we're going to have a lot of fun wrapping up this series.